live. And let me also as a backup record. Okay, so we can get started. So welcome back. So we are on the 18th session. Today's session is going to be very interesting. This probably one of the most hidden secret of yoga. We are going to talk. To be specific, a lot of concepts, like concepts are important in understanding reality, right? So these concepts will be, I would say, like expounded or unfolded in a very systematic fashion, because a lot of people have doubt on what is Samprajñāta Samadhi, what is Asamprajñāta Samadhi. So that secret is revealed today. So this, traditionally it is said that this is one of the most difficult topic of yoga, but we'll try to understand. I think it will be okay. So let's focus and try to understand it. If you have any questions, let's brainstorm. So with that, let's get started with the prayer. So let me do the prayer and we'll go from there.
Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarot tam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi.
So we are in the final portion of the first chapter, which is Samadhipada. If you really think about this first chapter, the topic is Samadhi. We need to understand that topic very well. And also yoga itself is defined as Samadhi. Because if you really think, we talked about the goal of yoga in 2 steps. The first step is called Samadhi, and the final step is called Kaivalya. And this Samadhi itself, right? It's not just a one state. Samadhi itself is a broader term which tells Samadhi. It's a well-placed mental state. At the lower end of that spectrum, it will be a mind which is completely in my control. At the higher end of the spectrum, the Samadhi means it is my own discovery about myself. Is this clear? Because Samadhi itself is not just a specific state, because we have seen the Samadhi itself is broadly divided into 2. The first one is called Samprajñāta, and the second stage is called Asamprajñāta Samadhi. And the Samprajñāta Samadhi itself is divided into Savvitarka, Savichara, Sananda, Sasmita. So this much we have seen. And what we are trying to do is, right now, the Samadhi is a theoretical state for each one of us. Yes, I do have the ability to little bit meditate. I can do a little bit of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, a little bit of dhyana, but that never culminated in a Samadhi. Samadhi means my ability to stay focused on the object of meditation. When I have that, that means I do have that control over the mind. Think through that, because we need to connect it logically. Dhyana means I'm putting effort to stay on the object of meditation. When that effort is successful, I can say that I reach the lower end of the Samadhi, which is I do have control over my mental activities. That doesn't mean that I discovered myself. The only skill I gained at that point of time is I do have the ability to keep my mind focused on the object of meditation. So that's what the lower end of the Samadhi. And how, for gaining into that lower end, where do I start? I need to gain control over my mental activities. Now let's Just pause and try to connect this from the Sutra 1 itself, right? So I want to gain control over my mental activities so that when I meditate on the form of Lord Shiva, I can keep on meditating. I can stay on Shiva itself. Otherwise, what is going to happen? My mind will take me away from Shiva or the object of whatever object of that meditation it is. Without my permission, my mind will pull me away from the object of meditation. That means I don't have Samadhi. So what is the process? Gain control over my mental activities. How do I train my mind in such a way that what vrittis, the modifications come to my mind, I do have that control. To understand that, we classified the vrittis into 5 categories. That which is vrittis which gives pramana, viparya, vikalpa, nidra, smritaya. We also saw that the vrittis can fall under, or the mental state can fall under 5 states, which is chitta, vikshipta, mudha, ekagra, nirodha. So from these type of mental activities, which are 5 in number, and the 5 different states of the mind, I want to make sure that whatever mental activities comes to my mind, I do it. It should be decided by me, not my mind. That is the difference. What thoughts I should employ, what feeling I should do. Feeling, of course, right? Of course, it is there. But what I'm saying is that feeling is always a dashboard. But how should I act towards that flag? It should be in my hand. I cannot say that I should feel when I should love. No, that's not what it means. The feeling is always a dashboard. It is an input. The body is telling me something. The mind is telling me something. Just like your car is saying that the blood means the air pressure is low or the gas is low. Just like that, I need it's a warning to me. It's an indication to me so that I can do something. So like that, what I should do with respect to the emotional dashboard should be in my hand. What thoughts I should entertain should be in my hand. So this is the chitta vritti nirodha. And also I don't want my mind into chitta, vikshipta, and mudha state. I should be either in ekagra or nirodha. Then I can say that I'm in that samadhi state. So there is a delta between my current state and the desired state. So how do I manage that delta or that gap? It is through the practice, abhyasa and vairagya. We saw that in detail. What is abhyasa? What is vairagya? And we saw that this has to be done for dirghakala nairandrika satkara sevita, right? So, and also we said that the vairagya itself is different forms, and what we need is vashikara vairagya. So all those things we saw, and we saw some accelerating process. Means how can I use a catalyst to improve this? We saw that Ishvara Pranidhana and Om meditation. From that, Patanjali said, no, you even the catalyst itself has some alternative practice and optional practices to enhance you. Even if you cannot concentrate on Ishvara, focus on something else. It could be pranayama. It could be commitment to dharma. It could be your meditation on nature. So there are several things were given as alternatives and options. Now, having said that, up to 39 and 40, we saw how to stabilize and clean the mind. So all the mandatory practices, alternative practices, optional practices put together a means for me to stabilize and purify the mind. Now, what happens after that? That is what is explained here. And as I said, like this is the most secret in yoga. This is the most misinterpreted topic in yoga. A lot of people talk about samadhi without a lot of clarity. So this sutras are going to give us that clarity, and this will surprise you a little bit, but this is what it is. So let's talk about that. The first topic which we are going to we are going to see the verse 41. We are going to define a term called Somapathy. Somapathy is a relative term, means a related term of samadhi, which we are going to see. And then we are going to understand what is the difference between this Savvitarka and Nirvitarka. Because earlier we saw that the Samadhi is classified into 4: Savvitarka, Savichara, Sananda, Saasmita. And now we are saying that that itself can be classified into 8. Savvitarka, Nirvitarka. What is the difference between Savvitarka and Nirvitarka? What is the difference between Savichara and Nirvichara? What is the difference between Sananda and Nirananda? So so that type of division is going to come. But understanding is very important. So please pay attention and ask any questions. So let's continue. Okay, so let's play.
क्षीणवृत्तेरभिजातस्येव मणिर्गृहीतृग्रहणग्राह्येषु तस्थ तदञ्जनता समापत्तिः.
Crystal clear definition. We are introducing a new technical term called Somapathy. Somapathy. So what exactly is this Somapathy here? So Somapathy means, it tells China Vrittaye. Vritti means the mental modification. So when the mind is quietened and controlled and freed relatively from the uncontrolled vrittis. Imagine you are sitting on a seat of meditation, right? So unlike Bhagavad Gita means you are working in the world outside. That scenario is what is portrayed. Here, a scenario is slightly different. You are committed spiritual practitioner. You are sitting on the seat of meditation and you are trying to gain control over the mind and you are trying to discover those secrets inside you. So remember, this is very different compared to the context of the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is me 24/7. I'm going and eating. I'm going and laughing. I'm going and fighting. I'm going and doing some entertainment. All those use cases should be addressed by the Bhagavad Gita. So it is me 24/7. Here, the scenario is different. Bhagavad Gita, only one chapter talks about the meditation seat, which is chapter 6. I specifically answer this because this is a question I got offline. So Yoga Sutra, the context is you are already committed. You are convinced with the need of the spiritual practices. And you're going there and sitting and meditating. That's totally different use cases or scenarios. So here you are in the seat of meditation. You are trying to control all your mental activities. I'm going to meditate upon my breath, prana vikshana. So I don't want the thought on my neighbor, what she is doing. I don't want to think about my daughter's admission. I don't want to think about the work tomorrow. I don't want to think about the stock market coming down. And I don't want to think about even the charity things like what happens to the people in Ukraine. Nothing. I want my focus only on my breathing, only during that time frame. So with the practice, what is going to happen? With the practice, initially what happens? Along with the breathing, Ukraine thought will come. The school admission thought will come. The work week, what is coming ahead will come. Or an angry co-worker's, whatever she said comes to my mind. Or about a movie I watched yesterday may come in. And over a practice of time, what is going to happen? All these vrittis will fade away. That is what is indicated by China Vritte. This is in a seat of meditation. Apijayate, that means there comes from when the vrittis actually you are freed from all the other disturbing vrittis, then the mind becomes, he tells, manir, apijayate, asya eva manir. Mani means jewel, a crystal clear jewel. So a crystal, which is a pure crystal, what is the nature of that crystal? It is transparent. The mind becomes transparent. All your thoughts will be flowing towards one object. What is that object? It is my object of meditation. I might be meditating upon prana. I might be meditating upon Lord Shiva. Or I might be meditating upon the mantra Om. Or I might be meditating on something else. But my mind is completely filled with, absorbed with only one type of vrittis. What is that vritti? The mental object created. The mental object created based on the object of meditation. Isn't it clear? So my mind is filled with what? The mental object created about the object of meditation. So if I'm meditating upon the image of Lord Shiva, my mind is filled with Shiva, nothing much. If I'm meditating upon the prana vikshana, my mind is filled with the breathing. I focus. I know that, yes, air is going through the nostril. It goes through the wind pipe. It is coming back. Nothing much. Undivided attention on not on the external object, but the mental object created based upon that external object. So that is why he said tada anjanartha. Anjana means coloring. See, in Sanskrit, anjana means what? Whatever you put on your eye is anjana. It's a black thing. It's a color. That's all. So the mind is colored or filled with the object of meditation and nothing much. And I can meditate, right? The mind will be like a transparent jewel. Like, let's say that there is a transparent jewel. In front of that transparent jewel, the most conventional example in Vedanta and yoga, you put a hibiscus flower in front of that crystal. What is going to happen? The crystal will be filled with that redness of the flower. The crystal will be red. If you place a blue color cloth in front of that, the crystal will be filled with blue color. So just like that, when all the other disturbances are gone, the mind will be filled. The mind will be like a money. Money means jewel, clear jewel, and filled with whatever object placed in front of it. So a mental object will be created based upon the object of meditation. And whatever is that object, it could be knower, it could be I'm meditating about the self, it could be the known, or it could be the means of knowledge. It doesn't matter, whatever is that object of meditation, my mind will be filled and absorbed in that object of meditation, which is a mental object created when the mind is clear and pure. And that absorption or in that mental object, which is created as a result of the meditation, and which happens only when the mind is pure and freed from all the other vrittis, and that absorption is called as Somapathy. So this is defined as Somapathy. So Somapathy is very much closer to Samadhi, and Somapathy is a prerequisite. Samadhi is a prerequisite for getting into Somapathy. The difference is only minute. That absorption, I am absorbed fully in that mental object, not the physical object. Right? So I am meditating upon Lord Shiva. I am absorbed in the image of Lord Shiva in my mind, not on the physical Lord Shiva outside. I am meditating upon the prana vikshana. I am completely absorbed on that prana vikshana process. So that's why it could be a process, the meditation, or it could be an object, or it could be about myself. It doesn't matter what is the object. You will be absorbed in a state, and that state is known as Somapathy. This is an advanced state, and this is called meditative absorption or Somapathy. Let me play this once again. So just listen to the sutra. It is very clear.
Kshinavritterabhijatasyev manir grahitr grahana grahyeshu tastha tadanjanata samapattihi.
Definition, beautiful definition. How it is defined is very clear. China vritti apijadasya. So when the vrittis are freed, quietened, apijadasya arises or stays in what? The mind will stays like a money. Money means pure crystal. And means as a result, when it is a crystal, we talk about three things, right? Grahyu, grahana, grehya. So the one means whether the object of meditation is the meditator itself, or the object of an external object, it is an external object, or a process of meditation. What happens? Tadartha, tadanjanartha. So that will color or fill my mind. And that state is known as Somapathy. I don't think anything can be defined in smaller words. It is crystal clear. He didn't use any word extra, perfectly defined. What is Somapathy? So this is Somapathy. So let's try to see a little bit more. So what happens? Once the mind is reasonably stabilized and clear, what happens? The deeper process of yoga can begin. So till then, right, till you reach the state of Samadhi, it's a preparation. So in the Ashtanga Yoga, till you reach the last stage, Samadhi, everything else is a prep to reach the Samadhi. So this we need to understand. Most of the people start and stop with asana. So this is not what the intended goal is. Of course, you get the benefit, whatever you do. So then what happens? The mind eventually becomes like a transparent crystal or a lens. It will be a purified tool which can be used to observe whatever. It can be used to observe your own mind. It can be used to observe anything else. Such a mind can explore detailed things in life. Having such a mind that can go to a Somapathy, forget about the fact that you want self-realization, everything. That people will show outstanding skill in the world outside. Have you seen people like who can learn like in a reading? They will retain everything. It's focus. Read the book, Focus, the Hidden Power of Excellence by Daniel Goleman. That book has all the details, all the research, which proves this point. When the mind is focused and it is in your hand, it becomes the most powerful tool available to you. Right? 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna tells, I believe, verse 7. He whose mind is in his hand, the mind becomes his best enemy. Just after the Uttaredatmana means Atmanam Avasadhe, the Bandhuratma Atma, that verse. So he tells, he who do not have control over his mind becomes his worst enemy. This is what it is. So let's continue. So when the mind becomes a crystal, what? The color, it means the mind won't color itself, but what is going to happen? The external, whatever is my object of meditation, it will color. So here we are going to see a difference, but so just keep this in mind. So when the attention of some inner object, samskara, you can understand that. Anything you want to understand, you can use your mind to understand it. So this is not an end by itself. The skill of Somapathy is not an end by itself. Somapathy is one of the making the mind as one of the most powerful tool, right? So when this mind means is in your hand, what it can be used to gain what about your own self. So that for you to see your own self, you need a mind like this. So now you understand in Gita also, right? The two-step process. First, 90% of the verses Krishna is making your mind such a strong tool so that it can be used to discover yourself. Without having the mind in this state, if you try to use that mind to discover yourself, you won't. So that's why people ask, right? The Brahma Vidya is only a small portion of the Gita. The yoga is elaborated as 90%. The reason is, without this, Cannot. And the third chapter, Arjuna asks, you think that knowledge is superior to yoga? But you asking me to do the yoga. Krishna tells you do not have a choice in your lifestyle. Lifestyle you do have a choice, but you do not have a choice in your path, steps. Lokesmin divitha nishta pura prokta mayanaka. The nishta, the lifestyle, you have a choice. But the steps, you do not have a choice. You need to have this powerful mind for self-discovery. Now, extending this to the secular world, having a powerful mind without spiritual intent still is beneficial. You can use that mind for anything else. Now, one more point. Without dharma, without commitment to dharma, if you gain these powers, what is going to happen? You become a Hiranyakashipu, you become a Hiranyaksha, you become a Ravana. All these dictators, Hitler or Mussolini or Stalin, don't you think that they are less skilled? They do have very good power on their mind. But without that commitment to dharma, it can create a complete negative effect. So that's why in yoga, what Patanjali tells before you get into first asana, yama and niyama is mandatory. So this Indic traditions, whether it is Buddhism or whether it is Hinduism or whether it is Jainism, give a lot of emphasis on commitment to dharma. Because if these tools becomes available to people who do not follow dharma, it can create a lot of issues in the world. And that is what is demonstrated through a lot of Puranic stories of Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, all those things. So that's just a side note. So this is Somapathy. Now this Somapathy itself, Somapathy means what? Simply Somapathy means what? You are completely absorbed on your mental object of meditation. So you do have the ability to hold that mental image, mental object constructed as a part of meditation. That is called Samadhi. So Samadhi means what? Your ability to sustain, your ability to create and sustain that mental object for a sufficient period of time is Samadhi. And your ability to getting absorbed into that mental object is called Samapathy. And now this Samapathy itself can be divided into multiple categories. The first one is Savvitarka and Nirvitarka Samapathy. So this is what is the next topic. So let's try to see the next sutra.
Tatra shabdartha jnana vikalpaihi sankirna savvitarka samapattihi.
So first Samapathy is introduced. Samapathy is your, once again, please ground on this topic. We are going step by step. This is very interesting. We need to unfold it because this is this is ranked as maybe the most complicated topic in Yoga Sutra. So please keep your attention. Of course, the Kaivalya Pada has similar type of description, but honestly speaking, it's not that complicated. You will understand it. So let's try to understand. So Samapathy is defined. Samapathy means your ability to create a mental object as long as you want or regarding the object of meditation and getting absorbed in that. And that itself is divided into different categories. The first category is defined as Savvitarka Somapathy. So if you remember, even the Samadhi itself is divided into Savvitarka, Savichara, Sananda, Sasmita, Asamprajnata. Verse Sutra 17 and 18, I believe, that area. So what is Savvitarka Somapathy? And before that, what is Savvitarka Samadhi? We studied that in Sutra 17. Savvitarka Samadhi means your ability to focus something physical. So your ability to focus on your breathing is physical, means you can touch and feel. Your ability to listen to the sound O for a sufficient period of time, because you're something physical. Your ability to focus on the physical image of Lord Shiva is Savvitarka Samadhi. And if you get absorbed in that, that is called Savvitarka Samapathy. You're completely absorbed, but there is a difference because there is a Nirvitarka Samapathy is also there. So that's what we wanted to understand. So in this stage, so let's see Tatra, what is going to happen? Tatra means in the Savvitarka Samapathy, what is going to happen? Samadhi, absorption with physical awareness, that is the Savvitarka Samadhi. And what is going to happen? Think about what is Samapathy. Samapathy is your mental the absorption of the mental image or the mental object created with respect to a physical object. It's clear, right? That is Samapathy. Your ability to get absorbed or engrossed in the mental object created as part of your meditation is called Samapathy. And it is called Savvitarka Samapathy because it is created on a based on a vitarka, physical object. So it could be an image of Lord Shiva, or it could be the sound of Om, or it could be your breathing. But there is a small problem. So we need to pause here and try to understand the metaphysical model of Vedanta and Yoga. Both are same here. The Indic tradition in cognition or understanding. So let's try to understand this on a high level first, and then we will try to understand. So listen carefully. So let's say that you are trying to meditate upon the form of Lord Shiva, or you're thinking about something. Let's take a simpler example. I want to see when I am seeing a person, let's say that X, my eyes will capture the image of that person and an image will be put into my mind. This is step number one. It is called the actual perception. Immediately something, the mind is a complicated instrument. It is means the mind has two functions generally. One is it integrates the input from all the sense perception, or it integrates the perception from the memory. Right? So let's take that simple example. It integrates all the perception from the external world. I see Mr. X staying in front of me. Clear. But what happens in the next moment? The mind has dual functions. Immediately it kickstarts my analytical portion of the mind. It tells that this person has cheated me 10 years back. So my mind will try to add a little bit more color. On top of that physical image created, the mind will add a little bit of more green mark and red mark and yellow mark and whatever not, or some flags. And my perception is a combination of the physical perception plus the analytical addition my mind add on top of the physical perception. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is pure psychology, nothing more than that. So when I see Vijay, yes, I'm seeing Vijay physically. Vijay's mind is created, but I have a love for him because I know him for a long time. So that addition, that additional coloring is added. And this is pretty much needed for our normal cognition, normal functioning of the world. So first, the physical perception happens, plus immediately in a split second, this additional coloring is happening. And what I'm seeing as Vijay is not the physical Vijay, but the Vijay plus my coloring. This is what I'm seeing. So a Somapathy, an absorption, is called Savvitarka Somapathy, right? When the physical awareness of my object of meditation, I'm meditating upon Lord Shiva, is intermixed with, right, the mental interpretation of that object in my mind. This is called Savvitarka Samadhi. Let's go a little bit more in detail, right? This is a complicated topic. If you understand the Savvitarka Samadhi, Nirvitarka Samadhi is very easy to understand. So let's try to understand the Savvitarka Samadhi a little bit more detail. Let me go to the details. So Savvitarka Samadhi, it is the first of the 4 types of Samadhi. Vitarka means physical thoughts. It exists during the absorption. What does that mean? The absorption of the object is intermixed with the word, the meaning of the word, and the knowledge of the word as interpreted by my mind. So when I think about apple, right? So an apple, red apple, green apple, and not so ripe apple, it will have different interpretation in my mind. Let me give you a different example. That has a little bit more details. So there are 3 things associated with how a mental object is constructed. Patanjali tells. He tells an object is constructed in the mind using 3 things. One is Shabda. For example, if I say car, that Shabda is the mantra or a word which gives me the image of something. And then what is going to happen? The artha, the essence of the object, the carness. And then the jnana means my own interpretation, my own understanding about the car. So if I say car, let me just think about this. The moment you say car, an image will come to your mind. Right? The car, that word is common. The artha, the essence, the carness, all of us thought very clearly. We know that it's a 4-wheel thing. It can be used for the basic functionality is common to all of us. But the jnana or the knowledge or the view of my car would be totally different from the view of your car. It may be based on your preference. I may like a BMW, you may like another car. Some people like an Ambassador, some people like a Maruti. It doesn't matter. So this is what it is. And let's say that I'm seeing Mr. X. 3 people see Mr. X. The name is common to all. We say Mr. X has come to this room. Think about Mr. X. Or I'm going to say that think about Lord Shiva right now. The word Shiva is the Shabda, the Shivaness. Each one of you know that he is considered as God, he is Mangaladayakam, etc. But on top of that, how you relate to Shiva, how you interpret Shiva is going to be different. Let's say that you are a Vaishnava. Yeah, you know that Shiva means God, but I don't have a connection. Whereas a Shaivite immediately feels emotional. So these are the 3 factors. One is Shabda, the second one is the objects, the basic essence of that object, and the third thing is my own interpretation. So the mental image I create on any object is a combination of these 3. Simply think about this, right? As I said, like when I say Gina or Vijay or Rohitji, I am seeing you, I'm hearing your name, but I add a little bit more color. My mind add a little bit more color based upon the samskaras. This is called Savvitarka Samadhi. So in other words, let's go back to the definition, right? So the definition is very clear. It tells the samadhi is intermixed with other things. When the samadhi is intermixed with other things, it is called Savvitarka Samadhi. And what exactly intermixed? You know that. It's my own samskaras will add a little bit more color. And so the image I'm seeing, let's say that if I can extract the image created in the mind of 5 people about one person. Think through that. Are they going to be the same? It's different. So that's why it is Savvitarka Samadhi. And if I use this, it is good. In a normal transactional day-to-day life, this is pretty much needed because the mind is designed to do this. I need to make use of my experience. I need to make use of my inferences. I need to make use of all these factors in such a way that I can navigate in this world pretty much normally. But this method will fail when I try to look for myself, when I try to look for my own true nature. This is the Savvitarka Samadhi. This Savvitarka Samadhi is not ideal for self-realization. When I see Purusha, if my vision is colored with my interpretation of my mind, it will fail me. So I need to have a skill. When I want, I should have the ability to add that coloring. And I should have the control to detach myself from the interpretation if needed. And if I have the ability to detach myself from the interpretation of the mind, if I can stop my mind interpreting what I'm seeing, then the Somapathy will transform, or the Samadhi will transform from Savvitarka to Nirvitarka. Is this clear? Now you will understand what is step by step, and later point of time you will understand what is Asamprajnata Samadhi. So you start with Savvitarka Samadhi. That itself is big, because I am able to absorb in the mental image I created. Whether that mental image is correct or not, that is a different matter. But I can create a mental image. I can hold on to that mental image for a sufficient period of time, and I can get absorbed in that mental image. That is Savvitarka. So, once again, the Savvitarka stage, the mental image is not exactly the external object, physical object. The external object colored by my mental interpretation is what is the mental object I created. In other words, I do have the control to hold on to the external object or the object of meditation, but I do not have control over the analytical function and the perception function of my mind. I cannot separate that. When I gain that much control, I go to the next level. Let me pause here and ask any question, because this is probably one of the most complicated topic of yoga. Anybody want to add anything? Or is it clear?
Yes, I want to clarify. So Somapathy is not a stage after Samadhi. It's actually going one level deeper for the explanation purpose, right?
Yeah,
it's not after. Okay.
Yeah.
So Rajesh, I was trying to understand, right? Like having a bias, like basically the way I am interpreting everything that you said, just using slightly different terminology, is the mind colors, you know, whenever you try to meditate on a particular object. So depending if the person is a friend, it's very positive vibes. very friendly vibes. If the person is not so, is inimical towards you, it's a negative color, right? And this coloring, this bias is very essential for transactional life.
Correct.
You can't do well without it, unless you have that color. How is the removal of this coloring essential for the spiritual life exactly?
It is very much essential because, see, the coloring is, so let's say that the coloring is not bad. The coloring is needed. Because without that coloring, your intellect is total waste. Right? So that is needed. But what to color, how to color, and your ability to see that coloring is correct, all that is very important. So what we are saying is that your ability to have the controlling over the analytical component of the mind is very important. And especially when you are seeing, because see, first of all, you wanted to experience your own self. That is the goal here. So what you are saying is that your mind has this dual function always. It is always intermixed, and that is how the mind works. But if you want to see the Atma without any judgment, or if you want to see the Atma without any judgment, first of all, you have to shut down this analytical thing for some time. And then you come back and Nididhyasana. The Nididhyasana is nothing but employing the analytical skill. So it's not that you don't want to have this analytical skill. It is the fact that you do have the ability to use the analytical skills when you want, and your ability to see things and get a vision if not needed. And this is perfect. Nobody can break this logic. It's very clear.
Sorry, please go
ahead. Sorry, no, just to confirm that point. So yeah. when whatever we are talking about this analytical thing, it would be, see, it will go back to the initial thing that we talked about, the chitta vriddhi, right? Like obviously it's what we put in our mind, right? So obviously if that is the right thing, if we are doing that, even though we get into this analytical, still it might not be bad because we are seeing the right things in the right way, right? So even that could...
Absolutely. But then this is why the Gita, why you practice Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga will make that analytical component reality, right? It's not, that's why the purity of the mind. So they say two things you need, right? Chitta Shuddhi and Chitta Sthiti. If the Chitta is colored with something else, the interpretation is always colored. So these all are connected. These all are connected. And what you are saying is that, please understand right now, please understand that you may have the meditative absorption on that object of meditation, but make sure that where you are, initially, you cannot get into Nirvikalpa Samapathy initially. You start with Savvitarka Samapathy and moving into Nirvitarka Samapathy. That is how it is.
But Rajeshji, ultimately, don't you want to remove all forms of subjectivity? Because the subject,
that is why you are going to Nirvitarka, right? So that is, see, you wanted to go to if you want to have the Purusha, if you want to really see the Purusha, your mind cannot interpret Purusha because your mind is incapable of interpreting the Purusha completely.
Comprehending that, yeah.
So you do your analysis first, then you have the vision, then you come back and do the Nididhyasana. That's it. When you do the Nididhyasana, you use it. So what I'm trying to say is that you need both the skill. You are saying that, okay, this time I want to interpret. This time I don't want to interpret, I want uninterrupted view. That skill is needed. So that is Savvitarka Samadhi. So we started with only Savvitarka. And now we are going to Vichara. There also Nirvichara is there. And then we go to Asamprajnata Samadhi. That is time you will understand it very well. So we started with the first one in this.
This is basically an acceptance, right? Acceptance of that this interpretation coloring is there, is the fact.
Correct. Understanding of the fact that your mental object is not freed from interpretation.
Yeah.
It is very much true, right? Just think about that, right? When I say, when I say Joe Biden, right? For example, a simple example. Imagine the mental image created by all you people. And if I can physically attract and put different Vedants,
Right.
all that would be different.
Absolutely.
Some people might be loving, some people may have a different interpretation. What is that? The physical perception is the same. The name is the same. But what created that additional difference? And it means I said Vedanta because he's the highest praise. And for go above that. Even Shiva. You may have more preference for Ayyappa.
Or Vishnu.
So you may have some respect, but not to the extent I have. Because for me, Shiva is like a father. So that difference is there. But this sutra clearly pointing out the fact that the mental image I create on any external physical object. Mind you, it could be an intermix of the physical perception plus that coloring. And that coloring is subjective. My coloring on that object is different from Jaina's coloring, and that is different from Bala's coloring, that is different from Arnab's coloring, and that is different from Rohitji's coloring. And if I want a free perception, I should have the ability to stop that interpretation, at least for the time being. But again, Shankaracharya, as always in this commentary, he jumps in and says that don't think that this is bad. Coloring is bad or the interpretation is bad. But understand that this two-step process is there in the mind, and you have to have the ability to pick and choose when you want to employ that. Especially in the seat of meditation.
So Rajesh, is Nididhyasana the same as Savvitarka Samadhi?
No. Nididhyasana is different, right? Nididhyasana is mean what? You are trying to reprogram your habitual thinking, but that is using the analytical skill. Habitual thinking is your reverting. So it's a different process, but this Samadhi is a state. See, Savvitarka, let's talk about Savvitarka and Nirvitarka Samadhi. So Savvitarka Samadhi means you have already advanced a lot in your spiritual path. You can create a mental image of the external object. You can sustain there for some time. You can get absorbed in that mental image. But if that mental image is created based upon your thinking about the external object and also plus your coloring, then that stage of Samadhi is called Savvitarka. And if you can temporarily suspend, when I see Shiva, I'm seeing only Shiva, not the additional factors. Oh, he blessed me 10 years back. Or when I think about him, eyes are coming. I mean, a lot of personal coloring, right? He helped me that time, or he didn't answer my prayer earlier. All those things, if that comes in that absorption, that is not Nirvitarka Samadhi. Nirvitarka Samadhi means when I am seeing Shiva, nothing but Shiva, no other coloring. If I can get into that level, that is more difficult in your meditation.
So
mind you, in our normal meditation practice of people, what we do, we don't even think about these type of differences. As long as you can get absorbed in Shiva, it's more than it.
So let's say you and I are meditating on the object of Shiva. So your Savvitarka Samadhi will be different than my Savvitarka.
Absolutely.
Savvitarka Samadhi, exactly. That Savvitarka Samadhi is always subjective because the mental image I create is based upon my own mental coloring. And my own mental coloring would be different from your own mental coloring because of my intellect, my experiences, my beliefs, my values.
Okay. So, whereas in Nirvitarka, both of us will see the same object.
See the same thing, exactly. Both of us will see the same thing. That is, it's exactly Rohitji. That's it. It's that simple. Once we understand that, it is very simple. Otherwise, it is the most complicated topic.
So it's kind of filtering, and you make sure that you have the differences there, so that you can progress to the next.
Yeah. So let's simplify one more example, right? So you see a scenery with a red colored glass. You see the same thing, and I see with the red glass. You see a blue glass, and she sees with an yellow glass.
But no matter what, both.
Yeah.
but no matter what, it is still, we are going to be both, you are going to be feeling both Samadhi and Somapathy, right? No matter what the thing is, because it is like...
So what I'm saying is that Nirvitarka Samadhi, I think Rohitji put it in a very simple language. In Nirvitarka Samadhi, everybody will see the same thing. Savvitarka Samadhi, there will be slight difference. And that slight difference is based on my interpretation. Perfect. Okay.
So Rajuji, is it really possible? Isn't it very difficult to on-demand switch off this subjectivity? Like when I want, isn't that subjectivity always controlling us?
It is most difficult. What you're talking is the highest level of spiritual.
That's all we are trying to.
Only advanced yogis can do that. What you're talking is the highest, the noblest, the most difficult thing. And that's why I started with a word of caution, right? In Bhagavad Gita, you're talking about a scenario where you are 24/7. You are working, you are entertaining yourself, you are crying, you are all that is covered in that teaching. Here, you are an advanced practitioner. You are on the seat of meditation. You have been meditating for some time. Yoga Sutra is a different book, right? It is designed for a highest spiritual practice. Bhagavad Gita, you see this in chapter 6. But this is a 4 times deeper interpretation of chapter 6. So Shabda, Artha, and Jnana. So this is Savvitarka. It's an absorption of a mental object constructed using the name, essence, and the last portion is very important. My interpretation. Okay, so let's just at least listen to the next sutra.
Smriti parishuddhau swarupa shunyevarthamatra nirbhasa nirvitarka.
So what is Nirvitarka? I don't have to explain. You all know that now. So Nirvitarka Samadhi, Somapathy is what? Absorption without conceptualization or coloring. That is the definition. If you know the Savvitarka, Nirvitarka is very simple. Edwin Brandt, in his commentary, he spent a lot of time on Savvitarka. Then he tells Nirvitarka is easy. If you know the Savvitarka, you understand Nirvitarka is very easy. Exactly the same thing. I agree with that. So absorption without conceptualization. It occurs when the memory is purged. Right now, I'm not allowing my coloring comes into my memory. And basically, I'm shutting down one functionality of my mind to interpret things. I tell my mind not to interpret anything. I just want to see the object as it is. And at that point of time, what is going to happen? The object will shine by its own. If you take Rohitji's explanation, I see things as it is. So 5 people are seeing the same thing, 5 people will see the same thing. So Smriti Parishuddha, when the mind becomes pure, mind will function Swarupa Shunya. See, what is the function of the mind? What is the function of the Swarupa of the mind? Perception and inference. And here, the mind will work against its own nature, Swarupa Shunya. It will negate its own one function. What is that function? Interpretation. Swarupa Shunya, and what remains? The Shabda will be dropped, and the Jnana means, Jnana there means my Jnana, Mama Jnana. My own interpretation will drop. The Artha means the object, the true meaning of the object, or whatever I see at that point of time. Nirphasa, so that Nirphasa means illuminate, shine forth. What is there, shine forth in the mind is what I see. The mind will be shut down from interpretation, and the mind will see what comes to it at that point of time. Nothing else will be filled in the mind. And that state is known as Nirvitarka Samadhi. If you understand this logic, this is very simple. At least to understand this is simple. To get into that, it is difficult. It is very difficult. But understanding is not that difficult. It is logical. It is very simple. So absorption without conceptualization. That is the definition of Nirvitarka Samadhi. This is a word coined by Edwin Brandt. He used that word. Absorption without conceptualization. Beautiful English translation. Right? Rather than overloading a so-called English word with this meaning, which is going to fall flat, he used 3-4 words to describe it. Absorption without conceptualization. That explains it very well. When the mind is purged from all the imprinted samskaras about that object, and when the mind is shut down with its own functionality of interpretation, that is what Swarupa Shunya. And what Artha Matra, whatever is the essence of that object, I am seeing at that point of time, that only vibhasa, that only shines. That state is called as Nirvitarka Samadhi.
Isn't Artha derived from Jnana? How would you know karnas without knowing about the car?
Okay, so Jnana is, see, the word Jnana there means it is not the absolute Jnana, Parajnana. It's only talking about my understanding of that object. Artha means it is the essence of that object, whatever it is, as it is. So Jnana means my awareness of that object. So my awareness of that object, it is going to interpret what exactly it is. When I see Shiva, I feel that, okay, he is my Lord, all those things, right? That. So, and means forget Shiva, like let's say the example of when I see my daughter, right? I see a person sitting in front of me with all the physical forms, etc. But on top of that, my jnana is going to add a lot of likes and additional color. So that's it. It's not the absolute jnana. It is stopped here. It is my jnana about that object. So artha, jnana, and shabda. So Nirvitarka is a concentration on a physical object in which no longer any other activities of the mind. The mind is purified and the mind won't color or distort the object of the awareness. That's the point. The mind, I'm temporarily shutting the mind's capability to interpret. The physical objects encountered or examined just without any attachment. I'm just seeing as it is. That is what is this Nirvitarka Samadhi. So normally,
that brings to...
normally in our world day-to-day life, there's two functions of the mind. As I said, like Shankaracharya was very quick in clarifying that to avoid any misinterpretation. It is not a manufacturing defect. You need to have this functionality to live as a human being. All the human progress is made because of these two. And even to understand God, you need to have this skill. But you are talking about a particular meditation where you need to temporarily switch this down at your will. That is Nirvitarka Samadhi. Sorry, Rathika, you had a comment.
Yeah, no, just so that means that brings to the very the question again is to how that is what we are trying here. So again, so we are talking about this is again through the practice and then all the things that we are following, right? Again, that is going to happen only. Okay, that is how.
Absolutely. So the point is, right, what you are saying here is that, see, the first chapter, he is going to paint the whole Samadhi in its entirety. Right? What is Samadhi? How many different levels of Samadhi? How do you get into that Samadhi? What is the speciality of each of these Samadhi? You can see, right? This is the topics we covered. And then in the Sadhana Pada, he's going back and start with the basic practice, Yama and Niyama onwards. So you have to see the what, and then you need to see the how. So the what is what is described in the chapter 1, and the how is chapter 2 and 3. How is what? Two things. Very simple. Kriya Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga. Together gives the how. What is this? So the Samadhi, once again, it's a complicated topic. It's misinterpreted to that extent that this wrong interpretation, people think that that is the correct information. So this is wrong. A lot of times the samadhi is a word, people interpret it as super consciousness. Those type of all these fancy words are used. It's not. It's a step-by-step process. So very, very important to understand. So let's go to the prayer, closing prayer. Before that, let's try to just listen to the 3 sutras we discussed today, and then we will do the closing prayer, and then we can go to the Q&A.
क्षीणवृत्तेरभिजातस्येव मणिर्गृहीतृग्रहणग्राह्येषु तस्थ तदञ्जनता समापत्तिः तत्र शब्दार्थज्ञानविकल्पैः संकीर्णा सवितर्का समापत्तिः स्मृतिपरिशुद्धौ स्वरूपशून्येवार्थमात्र निर्भासा निर्वितर्का विरामप्र ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः.
Okay, we can go to Q&A.
Yeah, Rajesh.
Yeah.
2 things. Can you put the audio of the Patanjali prayer and all the sutras in the chat group? Just the sutra, what you recite.
Yeah. I thought I did that. I'll do that again. No problem.
Oh, if you, okay. Good.
Yeah. No. I can do that. That's simple.
Yeah. And going back to